All right. Hi, everyone. We're just
Hello,
gonna get
everyone.
started.
Perfect. We hope everyone is having a great morning wherever you are. We see people coming from New York City, Washington, D.C. We have the Philippines. We have Ghana. We have, where else, Gloria?
I'm seeing a lot of wonderful people. Oh, we have some alumni, Bahrainian alumni.
We have
was
alumni
placed
from
in Missouri.
Wow.
I see Simone from DC.
Hi, Simone.
Oh, cool. We have Miriam from Minnesota. Oh, I think she's a YES Abroad alumnus.
That's amazing.
Who was placed in Morocco.
That's amazing. Hi, Miriam.
Yeah.
I remember Miriam.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I think I saw a story about her on the YES Abroad website.
No, we have a lot of good stories on that page. It's a good website.
It's a great website.
Yeah.
Oh, we also have, oh wait, we didn't even introduce ourselves. So first of all, we want to welcome everyone to the YES Alumni webinar. I think this is our third one, and we have a lot of great people that just keep coming on and getting the knowledge that we all need and being entertained by us.
Hopefully.
We want to welcome you to the Sports for Development and Peace webinar. My name is Hana Natsu, but you can call me Hana. I am the YES Program Coordinator at iEarn USA.
And hi, I'm Gloria. I'm the YES Program Manager here at iEarn. We have our iEarn shirts on.
Have our iEarn, we're super branded right now. Many YES students and alumni hold a strong love of sports that is cultivated in both their local communities and during their time on program in the US. Mm-hmm. And sports have continued to serve as a medium for students to participate in American culture, become a part of a tight-knit community, and bring communities together from all different backgrounds.
Yeah, I think sports is definitely one thing that really transcends borders, cultures, language.
Yeah.
And just brings people together, right?
Yeah, it does. It's a great way to bring people together. Gloria, do you play any sports?
Actually, I really like volleyball, but I'm only 5'2".
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, I don't know what that is in meters in the system that everybody else uses, but I do like volleyball. Yeah. I like watching soccer or football, as everyone else calls it. Too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like volleyball. Yeah. I ran track.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You fast?
I'm a mid-distance runner.
Okay. Not that fast.
Not that I okay. But I wish that when doing this webinar, now I can really say boldly that maybe we can use track or volleyball to bring communities together like some of our alumni are doing.
Yeah, and you know what's really cool? We have a mid-distance track fan over here.
Woo woo!
So yeah, we're just gonna launch a quick poll about what the most popular sport is in your country, and you can answer this poll, share a little bit. Answers are coming in.
Yeah.
And you know what's really great about this webinar is we know that sports are great and everybody really enjoys sports, but this is an opportunity for participants to learn from our experts and our alumni about how to use these sports, not just for fun, but to really make impact, to promote development and peace, which is a really difficult but meaningful endeavor. And you can, as YES alumni, you can use your love of sports in your projects and your activities.
Yeah, I think that's pretty awesome. I think that's super awesome. And I think this is the reason why I'm excited about this webinar, because we have so many amazing panelists, but I won't get to them yet. Before we begin, we just want to go over a quick review of some of the features in this room to help you navigate and participate seamlessly. First, please review the chat box settings. So everyone should have a setting when it comes to your chat box. We want to make sure that everyone is chatting and that everyone else can see what you are writing, so we can all do this together. Yeah. So please make sure that your settings say all panelists and participants. Yeah. So if it says all panelists or all iEarn, then you're just going to be chatting to Gloria and I. And we kind of want you to chat to everyone. So please change your settings to all panelists and participants. And we want you to feel free throughout the entire webinar to ask questions, to participate. There will be a Q&A at the end, so please don't think that we're not answering your questions right away, but the panelists, our lovely panelists, will be participating in the Q&A with you at the end of the webinar. The polls, as you can see, we have lovely polls. Please go ahead and participate by answering any questions that we have. We want to make sure this is as interactive as possible. And as we said before, we are live on Facebook. So to everyone tuning in on Facebook, hi! Thank you for joining on the webinar and on Facebook. And please make sure you click that little share button to share this webinar with your friends. And for those of you joining live, please feel free to comment your questions as well. We have our lovely, lovely, lovely colleague, Abby, behind the scenes, making sure that, Abby, you can wave. Oh, well.
She waved at us.
She waved at us.
We saw it.
We're giving you the wave. We're giving you the wave. But she'll be behind the scenes as well on Facebook and behind the scenes of this webinar, getting your questions as well. And as always, we are recording this webinar. So if you missed something or you just want to watch it again, you can go to yesprograms.org to watch it all over again.
Yeah. Or if your friend's like, what were you watching? Why were you laughing so much?
Yeah.
Right? Why were you having such a good time?
Why are you
send them
smiling?
This link, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why are you so happy?
That's right.
Because you just watched the Sports for Development and Peace webinar.
Cool.
Okay.
So we're going to end this poll that just happened real quick. 44% of people said that basketball is the most popular sport in their country. Wow. And I saw Solomon say that there's a basketball court in every corner of the Philippines.
Wow.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's like the Starbucks of sports.
Oh.
No?
It is. It is.
Okay.
Because I get it. Because there's a Starbucks on every.
Yeah. Thanks.
I love it.
Thanks. Okay. Anyway, moving on to the most interesting part of the webinar. First, we have Rachel Markowitz, our first speaker. So excited. She is the YES Senior Program Officer at AMIDEAST in Washington, D.C. Rachel is originally from Kansas, but she spent 5 years in Morocco, where she conducted research as a Fulbright Scholar and worked in international education. At the University of Texas at Austin, Rachel earned a master's in global policy studies and focused on international development and conflict. Rachel's thesis was on sports for development and peace based on her experiences facilitating sports program in Morocco, Rwanda, Israel, Palestine. Her favorite sport is ultimate, and she plays on a competitive women's club team called Suffrage. So many awesome things.
So many awesome things.
Yes.
I'm really excited.
Yeah. So Rachel is going to get us started. Set up her mic, make sure she's good to go. That's her lovely face right there. And take it away, Rachel.
Can you hear me okay? All right, I am going to start sharing. I have a little PowerPoint to share with you guys. So I will start sharing that right now and get us kicked off here. I want to start by thanking Gloria and Hannah for that awesome intro music. I feel like I was like back in high school running to center court in the basketball games. Awesome way to get this started. Just letting you all know that I will not be monitoring the chat while I'm speaking. So if you have questions, go ahead and direct them to Hannah and Gloria, and we're gonna do all the questions at the end. So just know I'm not ignoring you. This is just, I'm gonna focus on the content and get us started. All right, so as you know, the title of this webinar is Sports for Development and Peace. I will be sometimes shortening that and calling it SDP, just so you know that that's what that stands for, Sport for Development and Peace. All the photos in this presentation are from various experiences that I've had in sports programs. And I just want to also preface this by saying that essentially I'm going to talk to you about this from kind of an academic standpoint, because this is something that I've studied academically, but also just from my personal experiences. And every person has a totally different background with this and has totally different expertise. So what I'm saying is not the only expertise there is about this, but it is one of the perspectives to help you prepare your own projects. So a little overview. Oops. Let's see, doesn't seem to be working to go through my slides. Let me try one more time here. From the beginning here. All right, a little overview of what I'm going to talk about. I'll tell you a little bit about my background, give you a summary of what Sports for Development and Peace essentially is, tell you about some of the successes and challenges of this field, and then finish up with some guidance for all of you guys specifically. Let's do this. All right, my story. So I am originally from Kansas. Some of you may know where that is. It's in the middle of the United States. Not a lot of really big cities, but I did grow up in a big city where I played a lot of sports. I played softball, basketball, volleyball. And then as a teenager, I discovered this sport called ultimate frisbee that just really changed everything for me. Ultimate frisbee is a self-officiated sport. There's no referees. So this sport allowed me as a young person to really take control of my own athleticism. Conflicts on the field had to be resolved between the players as opposed to having some outside person come in and blow a whistle and tell you who's wrong and who's right and have people try to fake something. For me, ultimate frisbee was really about becoming a very ethical athlete. I took that with me to an international boarding school, United World College, where I went for the last 2 years of high school. So I was an international exchange student like you guys at an international school where I was also lucky to continue playing ultimate frisbee, mostly with people who had never played before. And I discovered that that was a really great way to make friends, to learn about different cultures, and to share something about myself with other people. I took that with me to college, where I went to university at the University of Texas at Dallas. We didn't really have much of an ultimate frisbee team there. And so it was something that I worked really hard on to help grow along with some of the other players at my school. It got me involved in the Dallas community outside of my university as well. So I found that really empowering. And then I took that with me to Morocco. I moved to Morocco right after undergraduate studies to do a Fulbright research grant on dispute resolution. So essentially, how do people resolve conflicts? And I realized as I was doing my formal studies on this topic that ultimate frisbee was actually a really great tool for helping young people learn about how to resolve conflicts. So I kind of changed up my research a little and started doing some sports for development and peace projects in Morocco, which then came with me to graduate school at the University of Texas at Austin, where I had the opportunity to go to Rwanda for 4 months. And while I was in Rwanda, I got to use ultimate again on a conflict resolution program, which I'll talk to you a little bit about. And then again, in graduate school, I ended up in Israel, Palestine, using ultimate frisbee with young people from different backgrounds there. I got to go to some high-level sports for development and peace conferences, which you may not know that those exist, but there are a lot of people working in this field. And then after I finished graduate school, I ended up at AMIDEAST here in Washington, D.C. as the YES program officer. And I think that there are lots and lots of ways that your stories probably mimic mine in terms of how sports have been used for you to bridge barriers, make new friends, empower yourself, and learn things about your community. So let's dig right into that a little bit more. The examples from my own life. So in Morocco, I was doing sports programs in 3 different communities for sub-Saharan migrants in Rabat, in a big city, the capital city, for disadvantaged kids in Azru, a Middle Atlas village, and then in the Sahara Desert with a very mixed community of kids in a very, very small town. So I got to see how this sport was used in a really wide range of settings. Not just see, I got to organize how this sport was used in a wide range of settings and really kind of refine how it was working and how it could be used in different ways for different groups. And that'll lead to some of these successes and challenges that I talk to you about later on. In Rwanda, the women that I worked with, it was new because it was adults rather than youth. And the women I was working with were from Rwanda and from the Democratic Republic of Congo on a very volatile border. So again, a conflict setting where there is a lot of violent conflict that erupts from time to time. And these women are separated by a border, but are really more similar than they are different. And these are traders who go back and forth across this dangerous border all the time. And so we used ultimate frisbee in a project that was designed to help them make friends with one another, learn about how to resolve problems in their own lives and with one another. And it was extremely successful. So that was my second big experience. And then this picture down here at the bottom is of an Ultimate Peace workshop. Ultimate Peace is an organization working in Israel and the West Bank to bring together young people who live right next to each other, but would otherwise never really get to meet each other. So Jewish Israelis, Arab Israelis, Palestinians came together to play this sport, and this was how they actually got to know each other's names. become friends with each other, and also get involved in some leadership training. So I got to do a lot of work with them as well. Now let's get really into the meat of this. Besides just my own story, why would anyone want to use sports in a development program or community building or conflict resolution? So why sports for development and peace? Well, for one thing, sports is starting to be recognized as a big tool for development and peace by many, many large organizations. The United Nations has its own office on sport for development and peace. I bet you didn't know that. There are big organizations, there are companies, there are all kinds of different ways that people are using sports. So the one thing that everybody has identified about sports is that it's sort of a universal language. Even if we can't communicate with each other, when we're on a field or a court and we're participating in something like this, we can communicate. It's a way to interact. It gives us an opportunity to be self-efficient. Self-efficacy is something that is, it means that you feel like you can produce results, that you have some kind of control. Sports help people do that. It helps build communities. It's really cheap a lot of times to play sports. It's a project that doesn't cost a lot of money, and it has a lot of buy-in, which means members of the community who maybe would otherwise have been sort of hesitant to do these kinds of things together are excited to do it when it involves sports because it's a lot of fun. Sport is also a prefabricated conflict. That means that when we play sports, we have agreed to fight each other over something. We all know it doesn't matter who wins the football match, but we created the football match and created different teams so that we could have a little conflict and see who wins. So it's a really interesting opportunity for us to learn about how conflict works and to sort of engage in harmless conflict and work through it together. There's just so many different options for how to use sports also. So that's another reason that why we use sports for development and peace. Now, how can we use sports for development and peace? There's really three main approaches. There's one that's called sports first. And that means using sports. I'm going to go ahead and click all of these. Sports first means using that sports is the main reason that you came together. So let's say you want to do a project to play basketball for girls in your community, and the main reason is to play basketball. And the side reason is that it's a way to empower young girls. So it could be that the main thing is basketball, and it's also kind of got this side meaning, but sports is the main reason. The second way to use sports is called sports plus, and that's where we use sports and also have a main development objective. So let's say that same basketball camp for girls, you're playing basketball, but you also have some leadership training things. So they came to play basketball, and then there's also some sessions on leadership or sessions on building your resumes. Let's say it's to help girls develop, high school age girls get ready for college. So you could be playing basketball and doing some development objectives at the same time. And then finally, the third way is really called plus sports, or sports as a hook. It's like using a sport as an excuse to get people together. So let's say that same example, girls playing basketball. The real objective here was to teach them about women's hygiene and get them involved in their own personal health. And basketball was just a way to sort of get them to come play because you knew they'd want to come play basketball. But then the main objective of the activity that you're doing is learning about hand washing, preparing menstrual gear that the women can use, or talking about fertility and how to be sexually healthy. So that would be an example of a plus sports or sport as a hook example. Within all of those three different approaches, there's a few other things you'd need to consider. Are you playing sports like a team sport or an individual sport? So is it going to be track races, or is it going to be a team sport? And different ways, if you choose teams or individual, they'll have different mechanisms, different ways of being successful. Are you going to use a traditional sport or a non-traditional sport? So playing football, which everybody already knows the main rules, might be the right thing in some settings, and in other settings, you want to try something totally new that nobody has played before, so that no one has an advantage if they're already a really good football player. So maybe you want to try playing ultimate frisbee, for example, in a place where you want to sort of level the playing field between the different athletes coming. And then another thing is sport or play. Many of the sports for development and peace programs now are not even playing sports at all. It's really more play-based. So it's lots of different games and things. And that might be the appropriate thing for some projects as well. Some of the big successes of sports for development and peace programs have been that they've been proven, like people have done data on this and discovered that sports programs can really help in a development setting to build self-esteem. And that word we used before, self-efficacy, a feeling of being in control. If I do A, B, and C, I can get results X, Y, and Z. So sports can be really good if that's your aim, to build self-efficacy or self-esteem. Sports can also be a great way to build community. They can be really helpful for health and education outcomes. Lots of the SDP projects have been aimed at health and education, and they've been very successful. They've also been very successful in instances of trauma. So lots of SDP projects are working with young people who have experienced war or other traumatic events. And again, you have to choose which mechanism to use, team sports or individual. Maybe with trauma victims, you're not doing kickboxing. Maybe with trauma victims, you're doing yoga. There's a lot of different science on this, but that is one of the ways that SDP has been really successful, is working with trauma. Gender inclusion is also a big success of SDP, getting young women involved in leadership positions, and older women too, but getting women involved in general in their communities and taking leadership roles. And then, I repeated community building here. Just a little side note that with community building, the big evidence has been that for small groups at the very least, so let's say that you want to bring 2 different schools together, community building through sports, that can very likely be very successful. It's possible that it's also successful in large scale, like the national level community building, but there's not as much evidence for that yet because that's a little harder to measure. There are also some big challenges for people who are trying to do SDP. One of them is, you've already just very briefly in this quick presentation seen how many different ways that there are to do this. So just determining what the goals of the program are and creating a framework for that project can be kind of challenging. There's also some challenges involving power dynamics. So different sports carry with them different cultural implications. They come from different places and may have power associated with them. So you want to really think before you do an SDP project about what those power dynamics might be, whether there might be some ethnocentricity. So does this sport make certain groups have more power or more control than others in this setting? Does it give different cultural values? You want to make sure that the sport isn't sort of inserting values that the community, that aren't good for the community. So that's another big challenge. Another big challenge is monitoring and evaluation. So this means knowing what the goals are, and then how do we measure whether we're achieving those goals or not? Just like any development project, that can be kind of challenging, because if your goal is increase self-efficacy or improve girls' self-esteem or bring communities together, you have to have a really, really specific questions that you're asking people in surveys or other ways to measure whether the program was a success or not. So that can be a big challenge. And then finally, sports evangelism is another term in SDP. This means when people just assume that sports can be really effective and they just go out there and do a sports project without having a solid goal framework, monitoring and evaluation, really thinking about what the mechanisms of that project are. And unfortunately in SDP, we have a lot of people who love playing sports and think that just if you love playing sports, that means you can just do one of these projects and it'll be great. Well, the truth is you actually do need to be able to truthfully measure whether it's actually achieving what you set out to achieve, instead of just assuming everyone had fun, so it was obviously a success. Okay, not to be too much of a downer, let's talk a little bit about what some of the best practices can be then to overcome those challenges. One of them is to make sure that you have local expertise, so that the people who are participating are involved in creating the project. Peer leadership. So if your project is for youth, there should be some youth involved in being the leaders of that project. Your coaches should have training. If you're doing a sports project where you have people coming to coach, we don't want them to just be good at coaching sports. We want them to also, again, know what are the goals of this and how can we achieve this, as opposed to we just want to play football. What is this training trying to do? How can our coaches be prepared to help with that? Having a monitoring and evaluation plan, and then just being really passionate and having a lot of fun. That's obviously one of the ways to make sure that your project can be really successful if you want to do SDP. If you are a YES alum, which you probably are if you're listening to this, the next step for you is to reflect on your own experiences. On the screen, you see pictures of lots of other YES alumni involved in sports and athleticism in different ways in their communities. I bet you've been involved in sports in some way too. So the first thing for you to do is think about that. What sports have you been involved in? How have you achieved development goals in your life through sports without even realizing it? Maybe by making friendships in your host community or introducing a new sport back in your home community. Then start narrowing down your approach. All those things we talked about before. What are your goals? Is it going to be a sports first, sports plus? What kind of approach are you going to use? What's your monitoring and evaluation going to be? What types of sports will you use? Create a proposal. Who, what, where, when, why, and how. You guys hear us say this all the time. The same thing is true for SDP programs. Having a proposal that really answers exactly what you're going to do in your project. Or do you already have a proposal for a project that you want to do that you're now realizing, oh, sports could be a really good hook to get everyone involved, or here's how sports could be another tool that we use in this project that we were already planning to do. So these are really your very next steps after this webinar to start thinking about how you can use SDP. And then just finishing off here with a few resources, and we can send you these links as well. The good news is that so many people are doing SDP that there are tons and tons and tons of resources out there for you. I've just started off here with 2 different websites of organizations that just make a ton of resources available for free. They have tools for monitoring and evaluation. They have success stories from tons of different projects, maybe even from organizations working where you want to do your projects, where you're from. Check those websites out. They also have career opportunities on them and internships many times. So really encourage you to check out Peace and Sport and Sport and Dev websites. And then finally, as I said, the United Nations has this Office of Sport for Development and Peace, and they help organize every year on April 6th, the International Day of Sport for Development and Peace. It's not until April, but start doing your projects now and start thinking so that next year by April 6th, you might be ready to do some kind of a large scale project to celebrate that International Day. And that's all I have for you guys. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen and hand it back over to Hannah and Gloria.
That was amazing. Thank you so much, Rachel, for sharing your experience and just for sharing with our alumni different strategies and tips for empowering, basically for empowerment for them to do their own projects using sports. And you have you have a wealth of knowledge. So
absolutely,
thank you. And also I want to thank Rachel for giving the alumni a dose of some knowledge when it comes to professionalism in this industry. You know, there are people who are professionally using sports to make a difference in their communities. So this is not something that's far-fetched.
Yeah.
So it's awesome.
Also, I didn't realize that there were so many offices working all over the world to really create impact. And I think in particular, what's really useful for our alumni is what Rachel talked about in terms of narrowing that approach, making sure that your love of sports and your impact is very intentional.
Right.
And then just elevating it to another level, by making sure that there's an evaluation point. There's ways for you to measure that impact. So
exactly.
That was awesome. Great pictures. Overall wonderful.
Very inspiring, truly. So we have our next guest speaker, who I'm pretty psyched to introduce. Her name is Geraldine Go Bernardo, and I hope I'm saying it right, but she'll let me know. She is a recipient of various training seminars from the Philippine Chamber of Commerce, International Labor Organization, and the International Olympic Committee, or the IOC. She goes by Dina, Zena became the first Filipina in 2012 to be accepted into the inaugural class of the U.S. Department of State and ESPNW program. Pretty awesome. This is the ESPNW program is actually the global sports mentoring program for emerging women sports leaders. Yes. She is the founder of the Sport Management Council of the Philippines, also known as SportPhil, and the organization's mission is to professionalize sports management, encourage the growth of sport professionals and sport industries, and develop support systems that contribute to the national agenda of fitness, well-being, and sport competitiveness. Did I say that right? Competitiveness in the country. These are just a few highlights of Geraldine's nearly 2 decades of extensive work with sports development. And we are so very lucky to have her. So without further ado, Geraldine, please show yourself.
To start, my name is Geraldine Bernardo. Thank you for the introduction, Gloria and Hannah. Wow, what can I say? I'm so privileged to be part of this group, and I hope I could share whatever I can to everyone out there. And probably you'll see a whole bunch of pictures just like Rachel has, so let me start. This picture, by the way, was one of our sports sessions just right after the biggest typhoon ever recorded in history, and this is in 2014. So can you imagine, some of my American mentors came over, heeded our call for help. These are 120 seminarians and 6 basketballs. So go figure how that happened. So, how do I turn this? Okay, so just to start off with my little journey, I am the most accidental athlete you can ever find. I'm a physical therapist by education, and I got my master's degree, married my schoolmate, and that's basically my career path. I was in business. I became a performing artist for a short while, and then I became a national athlete, and so on and so forth. So I guess I have to say, what's the significance of this picture? I credit my wedding gown for my sport career because it was so over budgeted and my husband was so cross. I swore to him I'd wear it again on our 25th anniversary so he wouldn't have to spend again. In any case, I turned from that woman into this. I became a national athlete for the Dragon Boat team. Sport became my relief, my escape. We underwent a very serious crisis in our business where we lost about 70% of our business and lost 200 of our people. And I just said, hey, why don't I stride into the bay and try Dragon Boat, not knowing that I could be competitive. And thanks to the proddings of my husband, this is what I became. And believe it or not, I was already 39 years old when I had this and won our gold medal. So I keep telling my students, because I also teach sport management in university here, you know what, if I didn't raise my hand that day and said, you know, coach, I want to try out for the national team, I wouldn't even be here talking with you guys. And it has been a ride ever since. It has brought me all the way to the US, and it's a never-ending adventure for me. So let's start. So my topic, the flow of the presentation now will be, let's revisit just a little bit the role of sports. I mean, like the lady said out there, we love sports. I could see that bleeding heart wherever I go. Like, I know I want to do something. And so I'm sure you can, especially after hearing us. So we wish you good luck on that. I'll give you some of the insights on the Philippines and what kinds of programs we had to do to answer some of these situations. I will share some models and lessons for inclusive sport development, as well, just like Rachel, we do have to encourage more research, and service learning is a way for students to also apply what they learn into an actual community. So what is sport? And people might think it's the thing on the right, competition high level, but the most loose definition of sport is just it is a whole range of activities wherein it's an experience, business enterprise even that's focused on fitness, recreation, athletics, or leisure. So believe it or not, even that picture on the left, children jumping over hands and doing whatnot is also part of leisure and sports. That said, I think we focus too much on the high level competition, not knowing that we have to care about sport development even to the very base level. Mass sports, sports for PWD, sports for recreation, sports for just having fun. Because we can draw competitiveness in the future if we make sure that the base is all covered. So there's a whole range of things you can do using sport for these objectives, just like what Rachel said. And it doesn't always have to be like competitive sports. We could use games, tribal games, activities. So, and I guess the reason why sport works so much is that it has major social impact. We have a very famous boxer here. His name is Manny Pacquiao. And every time he comes on, I mean, the streets are empty, it's quiet, and it's just a sense of national pride. And what about in a situation like this, in a typhoon? Do you think sport has major social impact? So in one of our exercises, about 100 days after that typhoon happened, so we came across a seminary school wherein the boys range from about 9 years old up to all the way to 20 years old. So we grouped them to in age ranges, certain age ranges, and we asked them, so what are the things that are happening in your community? What are the issues and the problems? And even for these young boys, they wrote things like it's laziness, it's irrationality, it's corruption. And the answers were the same across all age groups. And then we came with a question of, so why do you love sports? And here comes all the feel-good answers: fun, sportsmanship, discipline. And therefore, we tried to make the connection by saying, well, whereas we can't solve everything that's happening in your community, do you think sports can help? Some of them. And it was like a light bulb that clicked in their head. And of course, sports for women's empowerment. So we had this program wherein even that little girl in the middle, she's a wonderful alumnus also of an US program. And when she came home from the US, she said, oh, Dina, we have to start a program. I've got these girls. And the first time I saw these girls, they were lanky as anything. They couldn't handle a ball. And in a month's time, they could look at you in the eye, shake your hand firmly. And they even ended up winning first runner-up within their first year of competition. So that was amazing. And so here is my community. As you can see, the Philippines is composed of 7,100 islands. And we have what we call, right at the bottom, the autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao. And I'm a girl of the 60s. I was born in the 60s, and we've known of these problems. And only later in life did we realize that, it's not just their problem, it's our problem as well. So as you can see on the screen, they have the worst indicators across everything, like lowest primary education, highest infant mortality rate, highest poverty, you name it, they've got it. So do you think as sports people there's something we can do? But remember, sports is not that magic bullet. And don't come in thinking that you can solve everything. You always have to ask people on the ground. And so I did ask Professor Henry from the Mindanao State University, and I said, gosh, Henry, is it really okay to introduce sports to women in Muslim Mindanao? And he said, yeah, sure. In fact, it will provide role models, leadership training, but he had a big but. He said, but we need to address the needs for religious consideration in physical activity, participation, and use. And so we did more digging. I did more digging. and consulted these women. These are the imams, or they teach madrasa to the Islam kids. And I didn't have to go all the way down south. I mean, we also have our Muslim brothers and sisters in the cities where we live. And so I had to get their blessings. I had to find out what sports they wanted to introduce. And we ended up with two. First is table tennis. As you can see, it's cheap and convenient. In fact, all of the table tennis equipments we had there, except for the balls, were all made by hand. We got some carpenters to make them for us. And it's not about physicality. So we have to respect that there are certain sports that might not sit well, and we have to respect that. Another thing is, and my compatriot Sulaiman was already mentioning this, there's a basketball court in every corner. And we chose futsal because it's easy. The biggest reason why people can't play sports is because they don't have access. And in the Philippines, you can have as much as 44,000 courts nationwide. So that should be easy. In any case, we also provided capacity building to teachers. So you come in there with a program, with the best of intentions, and when you leave, so who's going to continue this? So it made the best sense to engage the teachers. Besides, they need content for their PE programs. We had to ask them, okay, when was the last time you played sports? And alarmingly, many of them said, I think it's been about 5 years since I played sports. So how could you teach sports if you haven't experienced it yourself? So here they are in one of our refresher sessions. And let me tell you, they scream the loudest and have the most content. And there's hardly any equipment, nothing fancy. Have ball, will play. Very simple equipment. And let me just fast forward this a bit. See, they're just having a lot of fun. And why does it work? It conforms to the community's requirements. Futsal, check. Table tennis, check. And it's accepted by the parents. So during the sessions, we even asked the parents to come and said, Assalamu alaikum, would you like to join us? And they did. You know, it was all fun. Now, here's another video that I have to say really affected me. And let me show you one.
We always hear of kids in Manila who skip school to go swimming. But here were kids who go swimming so that they can go to school.
The common stories we hear are them walking across mountains. Sometimes, they have to cross rivers, but not to the point na getting themselves wet. Waking up very early in the morning just to be able to attend school.
Mabatdag kami sa school, nababasa lagi kasi naglilangoy. Mahirap pagkatapos po yung paa namin matatamaan ng bato pagkatapos masugatan ng tabak.
Nababasa po yung bag niya, tsaka yung mga notebook, paper. Tapos pag hindi mo naman nilalagay sa plastic yung mga gamit nila, binibilad na lang sa araw. Na-experience namin, hindi kami nakatapos, nahirapan kami. Kaya gusto namin ng anak namin makatapos para naman sa kinabukasan niya yun eh.
Across mountains just to get to school, and the dropout rate is very high because they're so tired every day. But also, what's amazing about this is that these two guys, Jay Haboneta and Dr. Anton Lim, I mean, they're not bigwigs. They're just like ordinary people like you and I. And yet, I guess it just takes a few people to care first, and you will discover that so many other people care. And thanks to their efforts, there are probably close to 200 boats right now. And so me as a paddler, when I saw this, I said, I guess I can do something for them. Jay and Anton have provided the boats, and I'm a paddler, so do you think I can come in and give recreation to these kids by teaching them how to race? I mean, I had to go far to practice my dragon boat paddling. And here's a body of water just outside their backyard. No? And so we did. We came along, me and my trainer, and we hitched along one of the boat turnover ceremonies of about 25 boats in this community. We hooked up with a civic group. We made sure that the government was okay with it, the school was okay with it, and later on we wanted to engage media and companies, and we were also treated to a nice cultural dance. Why does this work? Because we engaged the entire community. And so what also makes it work is that we made use of what's familiar to them already. I didn't have to put up a basketball court. In fact, this picture is of the parents paddling, because when they saw their children play and they said, hey, we want to play too. So this is the impromptu parents race that we had to make. So that was a lot of fun. And here's another thing that came into our the tragedy that befell us in 2013. As you know, disasters are composed of two types, the man-made one and the natural one. So in fact, so that year was a big blow to us. We had the Zamboanga conflict, which was a siege between rebels and terrorists and the people in Zamboanga and ARMM. We had the two natural disasters, typhoon and the earthquake. So again, as sports people, how do we react to this? And so again, our bleeding hearts called out, and there are other people who came to the fore. So we're not alone anymore. We're still ongoing with this project. It's been 4 years now, and we're about to come up with our study on how we have empowered the survivors of Typhoon Haiyan through sport-based psychosocial interventions. And this is, like I said, the value of strategic partnerships, getting skilled people to perform the sports, getting psychologists as well, getting people on the ground, like the International Emergency and Development Relief Organization. And of course, we had help from the State Department, as well as our mentors from the Center for Sport, Peace and Society, the University of Tennessee. And so these were some of the results that we got. The result was a change in perspective, a feeling of empowerment instead of helplessness. And from one of the quotes of the students, we're doing something like dancing, theater. That's why problems don't seem to be so great. We're not saying that their problems have disappeared, but we observe that they have better coping mechanisms because of sport. In fact, we also observe that if the children or the adults are used to sport before a disaster, then their resilience is higher. Another is that it fosters social interaction. So this is a follow-up with our seminarians, and they said, oh, you know, by playing with the children, they opened up to us, they shared, and they became closer to us. Moving right along. So what about this? Initially, the teachers came, again, we did capacity building, and they figured, what are we doing this for? But later on, they were our biggest allies, or our biggest promoters for sport for post-disaster. And all of a sudden, the teacher felt, hey, I could really use this. So just to wrap up some of the learnings, because of the time element, I have to say that for anybody who wants to get into sport for Sport Plus, Sport First, or Plus Sports, the importance of partnerships and linkages, and including people on the ground, because they would give you they are the people who would know where the needs are the most. But also consider the psychosocial needs. Get the social workers, talk to them, because you may not know, but some activities, especially when you're dealing with abused women or children of trauma, that inadvertently you might be using things or activities that could trigger the trauma again. So we have to be very careful. Adopt what I call the doorstep sports, and as much as we can, let's bring the sports to the deprived communities. And very important part and component of all of our outreach is empowering the coaches and teachers. I discovered somebody told me a very apt definition of empowerment. It's when they no longer need you. And when that happens, then they're totally empowered. Use local resources and use local solutions whenever possible. And sport is not a static development. And even in our outreach, we've had to come back once or twice. It's never a one-off thing. Always create and maintain opportunities to play. And for this little girl, her name is Zoe, 5 years old. She just loves weightlifting, and she brightens anybody's day. So sport is an intervention that we also discovered can continue even after the initial relief is gone. So the exponential and the multiplier effect is there if you do it right. And let's always seek opportunities to do research and service learning so that we can share what we know, and so that others can emulate. Finally, practice inclusion. Again, these girls are from the Muslim Mindanao. We brought them to the city and they interacted with everybody else. The contact of children to sport has to be pleasant. So create pleasant experiences all the time. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm on Twitter, I'm on YouTube. Thank you very much. Oh, just to show you some of the programs we've done. So that's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Geraldine. I have to say that
wasn't too long, huh?
Project is what you did for the children in order for them to get to school, the paddling. It's truly inspiring and empowering. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
We are so thankful to everyone who's still with us and here learning, getting empowered, getting inspired. We have our final speaker. I can't talk today.
Yeah, but real quick.
Yeah. Sorry.
So if you guys noticed, there's also at the black toolbar at the top of your screen, there is a Q&A function, if you might have noticed up there.
Mm-hmm.
You can ask your questions. We also have a Rachel in there who's providing some really in-depth and personalized, excellent answers to some of these questions that are in there about, connecting countries that aren't allowed to physically visit each other, or engaging girls, for example, if there's not a lot of community support. So feel free to go in there to ask your questions as well. You can also ask your questions in the chat box. So keep that lively discussion going. There's really a lot of excellent commentary going on.
Awesome. Nice. So we have our YES, the voice of the YES alumni community. I think we're going to go back on live. We are live still.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we have our voice of the alumni community, Nasir Adu Ahmad, who usually goes by Ahmad. Nasir is a 2009 YES alumnus from Ghana who was hosted in Fort Wayne, Indiana by AFS. He is currently the YES Ghana Alumni Association president and an AFS Ghana board member. Super busy, Nasir.
Mm-hmm.
Ahmed was the project leader for the Peace Games in 2016 and YES for Peace. So without further ado, Ahmed is actually going to show us a visual photo album of his journey while using sports to empower his community in Ghana.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Hi, Ahmad.
Hello, and thanks. Yeah, and so, thanks very much for the wonderful introduction that he just gave. Let me quickly get my PowerPoint, and then I could, possibly just share my screen. And I just want to say thanks to the first two presenters. I mean, I think they did a wonderful job. And, I've also picked a few things from them. I mean, they seem much more professional in the area of work. And so that is also going to help me with respect to the incoming, project that I may have coming up. All right, so like I said, my name, like you said, my name is Ahmad, and YES Ghana Alumni Association president, also an AFS board member. So let me just start talking about, how we came up with using sport for, peace. We are a very young democratic nation, even though 60 years seem to be a very long year. But then we actually started selecting our leaders or choosing our president democratically in 1992, and so it dawned on us as very important. Decision for us to maintain the decision. The democracy that we have. And so my team and I sat down and looked at the prospect of using sport as a way to maintain the peace and order that we have in our country. Growing up, the sport that I'm used to has always been soccer. And as you can see, I'm a little bit, okay, all right. So let me just continue. So with the pictures here, as you can see, football is the most common sport in Ghana. That's soccer, and about 98% of young guys and even sometimes our ladies do participate. And so this is the area where I grew up in Ghana, and this is what we normally do Saturdays and Sundays, because in the weekdays everyone goes to work or go to school. And so we sat down to look at the prospect of using this to maintain the peace that we had, the peace and the democracy that we have leading up to the 2016 elections. And somebody will ask me, why did we decide to use this as a medium of maintaining democracy and peace and order prior to leading up to the 2016 elections? Well, we had a lot of concerns leading up to the election, because then there were a lot of messages on the airwaves which we thought were not really great. We have too many political parties in Ghana, and some of the messages that were being put across were not that pleasant. And we believe that in order to maintain the democracy that we've enjoyed so far, and the peace and order in particular, we had to, come up with something to get the youth, for them to understand why it's important for us to maintain the peace and order that we enjoy in Ghana. So it was just a simple decision by us saying, okay, well, let us use football, let us get school clubs involved, let us get the young adults involved, and then just let us pass our messages across. And I did play sport also in the US, and so I used some of the advices I had from my coaches back in the US as an advice or guidelines for my project. So that's what I did. So as you can see me right here, I play for travel team considered in 4 208, 209, and I play for U17. And that is me. So mine, my project started with meeting up with AFS, the office in Ghana here. So AFS has what we call the school clubs. It has about 24 school clubs in Ghana. And so in each school club is made up of about 30 students. And we thought it was going to be way simpler for us to use a school club because it's well organized and it would be excellent in getting the youth that we needed in order to pass these messages across. And so we decided to pick 8 out of the 24 schools for the first project, and then another 8 for the second project. And so this is what we came up with the peace games. And as you can see, AFS has its own slogan, connecting life, sharing cultures, and we have the grooming global citizens as the slogan for YES Ghana Alumni Association. And so we decided to just merge the 2 slogans. How did we go about this program? Let me start, I think I've spoken about why we needed this program. And then, you may want to ask us, how did we come up with every single thing that we're going to put in place? So I started with the school clubs. We met a couple of local leaders in Cape Coast. That's where we had the first peace games. We met with the police department in Cape Coast as well. We met with the high school headmasters and headmistresses in Cape Coast as well, and then a couple of lecturers at the University of Cape Coast. We just wanted, the community leaders to come and then give a speech and also tell, these students why it was important for them to participate in such a program and why we believe that they were the best tools to send the messages across. So looking at this picture, the Play for Peace banner we had there, it was we did copy that from World Governing Soccer Body, that's FIFA. So if those of us who are very who watch a lot of football games, whenever there's a World Cup, FIFA has all these banners, which is what my game is fair play. And so we decided that, well, we will change our banner and make it Play for Peace, because the aim of the project was leading up to maintaining peace and order and democracy in our country. And as so this picture talks about, let me just give a brief discussion about this picture. So this is the high table. We still had some of our dignitaries not around, but we had the AFS National Director right there. We also had a member of parliament for that area, who's much more like a house rep here in the US over there. And we had a couple of, AFS School Club patrons for the respective schools. The canopies that we have there, under the canopies were respective schools. And so, there were all girls schools, there were, mixed schools as well. And that's what we decided to bring every single one together. We wanted to make sure that, there was gender balance. And that's why it was important for us to be very selective when we're getting the schools. We didn't want a situation whereby we're going to have all girls schools or all boys schools, but we needed, gender balance in terms of our project. Now, just another picture, has the same Play for Peace banner, but this picture actually has a lot of history behind it. So as we can see, we have a lot of foreign students, and these are all from Germany. Somebody will want to ask us, why did we have these foreign students for a program which is meant to maintain peace and order in Ghana? Well, I'll tell you why. We have these students because, first of all, these guys come on the AFS program. They spend 11 months in Ghana. And we decided to use them because we believed and we knew that Germany is actually one of the most democratic nations in the world, and being the world superpower as well. So we asked these students, how do they go about maintaining the order that they have in Germany, and how do they behave on days of elections in their country? And we got our answers, and we believe that networking is very important. Networking is very, very important, and so therefore we had these students so that our students will be able to interact and share ideas and then network. Even when they leave their country, our students will be able to ask them questions, because elections are every 4 years, and so it's not just a one-off thing. We will still need a lot of all these trainings and all of these ideas in order to maintain the peace that we have for the foreseeable future. And so that is why it was important for us to have our German students over there, so our kids could network, our students could, ask them questions and find out how they do it back home, so that we can also apply it down here. And this picture right here talks about a very, very important aspect of whatever that we had. I think it actually sums up whatever that we did. There's a game that we have in Ghana called the Tug of War. I don't know how many countries that have such a game, but we decided to name this game Tug of Peace because we were playing for peace, because we were playing to maintain peace and order, because we were playing to maintain democracy, using sport to do, to get the results that we needed. And we believe that, let me just explain what this game is about. So you have two set of groups, each on a side, and then have a rope that you pull. And so the group which is able to pull the other side into their own yard is declared the winner. And so we came out with this scope that elections, this is how elections are. You have this side on the other, a group on the other side. You have a group on the other side of, the rope, and another side. And so the political party who comes out victorious in the election is actually one that is able to sell a good manifesto to the people. So we just use this as a presented election as a game. It's not, it might be a contest, but elections are not wars. Elections are won by being able to convince the voting population with your manifesto, and that's how we presented it. And we told them that whoever is able to win election means that person was able to convince the populace, the voting population, with their manifesto. And so by so doing, then they were able to pull the other side into their yard. And that's how come they became victorious. Okay. And then also, so we said elections, after elections, when a group wins, it's time for jubilation, because then they believe that they've been able to sell their ideas, their manifesto for the people to believe. Yes, I mean, you always don't have one winner, but we should all celebrate, whoever wins, because we are celebrating the future and the current state of the country, not necessarily that political party, because whether we like it or yes, it's going to be that political party which is going to be in power for the next 4 years, and so they will need our support. And so any election where we have a victorious party, without any confusion or without any conflict, is victorious to the nation, not necessarily one political party. Yeah, so this this also another picture which explains, who talks about certificate and trophies which were won by some of the groups. This shows our German team that won, I think 2 of the games that we did. And we also had Team AFS with YES, so it was a mixture of YES students and then AFS students as well. AFS participants and some of the YES alumni, because it was a YES and AFS school clubs activity. We collaborated to bring this thing together. And then, as you can see, this was the trophy presentation on the top left corner. This was also a commencement of the game. Other officials for all our games were YES alumni. We just decided that we didn't need any officials to handle our games, because it was important to make the game much more informal, not formal, because we're dealing with young kids, and so I should say young adults, and so it was imperative that you make it much more informal so they could interact very well, and it would be much more fun, not that very formal. Yes, and so that's this is what do you call it? That's the end of my the pictures that I have for you. But I would also want to pass on some messages with regards to the games that we did, and how one can set up even though you're not a professional in the field of using sport as a development. Okay, all right, and so I believe that one of the important things to consider when you want to come out with a project of this nature is actually networking. You don't want us to go to the University of Cape Coast to talk to community leaders. You don't want us to talk to AFS school clubs. You don't want us to talk to AFS school club patrons, those who represent the school clubs in their respective schools, and then the headmasters and headmistresses. We think that it becomes much more easier to be able to get your audience when you speak to the community leaders or people who are in charge, because you cannot just wake up and then just go to a school and say you want to have a program with a student. Also, it is very difficult trying to get students together, or the youth. And so once you go by the line that we use, then if you go to, let's say, institutions, you can actually talk to the institution to give you all the audiences that you wanted. We specifically had this program for school clubs and then students, because then we had another one for the whole community, which did not include sports. And that's why I'm putting much more emphasis on speaking to schools and everything.
So I think also we had a really great question from Miriam to Rachel, right? And Miriam was asking, about how to bring people together to a project if you're new to the community, which can be tough, right, if you don't know a lot of people. So Rachel, did you want to go ahead and offer some tips? And I know people do have to leave too, but we're going to continue to go ahead and make sure everybody's questions do get answered.
Yes.
Yeah, that is such a good question, Miriam. And I'm so glad you asked it, because I think that it really comes back to that something I mentioned very briefly in my presentation, which is sports evangelism. There's a lot of danger in SDP programs that people who are great athletes and know all the great things that sports have done in their lives, or have seen it happen in other people's lives, that we can show up in new communities and think that we can just create a project that will be great for everybody else. The most important thing to do is to find out who the different local actors are and what they want and what they think is going to work really well. So start by finding out, are there any other organizations doing this kind of work in that community? Sometimes I've kind of started doing something and I think I'm being really innovative, and then I find out later there's like a professional organization doing this already and they're much better equipped than me. So find out if there are any, ask around, search those websites, different organizations, cold call people even if you have to. If there still is a big need and you see that nobody is doing this, maybe start identifying who are some of the athletes from or in that community who might know the best place for you to start. And if there aren't any athletes, then think about what's the purpose of your project. So let's say that your project was for like a hygiene project, for example. Maybe nobody's using sports for that yet, but other people are doing hygiene related projects. So then you find out who are those people and you talk to them about how you could introduce sports into that. I'm not sure if that totally answers your specific questions, and the answer might be different for people from different communities. So I kind of gave you a very general answer. Feel free to email me if you have like a specific question about the community that you're in, and I can help you navigate that individually too.
That is so true, Rachel, because I feel like even if, like what you said, presenting the idea to someone who is not even doing anything sports related, then there you go. There's a great networking opportunity right there. So that's awesome.
Yeah. So I think we just about ran out of time. I wish we could talk about this forever and ever. But if our panelists, the three of you, want to share some of your contact information in the chat, maybe some email, social media, if you're on Facebook, Twitter, anything, because I see Solomon wants some input or some advice on the topic of volunteerism. Yeah, Nasir, if you want to share some of your contact info, I feel like everyone is so excited to talk about this and really develop more of their ideas on SDP.
Yeah, so please go ahead and share those contacts, just something that our alumni can follow up with you, whether it's an email,
Instagram, Twitter, Facebook,
any of those social media networks.
And speaking of, before we wrap up, you can find the YES program on yesprograms.org, where we continuously have lots of different stories coming in of our alumni projects, sports and non-sports related.
Yes.
We are on Facebook at Youth Exchange and Study, where we are currently live. We are on Instagram, yes.program, and we are on Twitter, Yes Program News.
We are just everywhere.
Hit us up on all the things, all the places. Share your stories with us, photos, videos, everything. And thank you once again to our wonderful, wonderful guests.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Geraldine. Thank you, Ahmad, a.k.a. Nasir. Well, Nasir, a.k.a. Ahmad. Thank you for joining. And thank you at home in different parts of the world for joining us this morning, this afternoon, or this evening. We really appreciate you all, and stay tuned for our next webinar. We can't tell you what it is yet. It's a surprise. Bye.